This is Van Electric Ghost. We're live on the air with Victoria Cuore for the first time. You're an 8-time award-winning author, speaker, top 30 voice 2026, host of a top global podcast, trauma recovery expert, and you're providing blueprints for survivors to find their inner light and reclaim their power. Welcome to the Van Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's fun to talk to people. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. And before we get to the heart of your story, I ask every guest a couple questions. One of the questions I ask is, what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because I survived domestic violence and I had to go through it alone. And I went through it while I was pregnant. And I never want anyone to go through what I went through and not have somebody to help them along the way.
It's like great that you're paying it forward, and you're taking the benefit of like what you've learned is like you're able to kind of teach people or be able to give that roadmap. So some folks probably wouldn't know how to address that, and it's great that you're able to speak to it. So I think that's the great thing I like to talk about the creative people is they're
Yes.
willing to kind of dive into their vulnerability
Hmm.
and then share the benefit of their experience.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I like to maybe go like back up a little bit is like how do you want to tell your story? Where do you want to start from?
I'll go wherever you need me to go. You lead
Uh,
me, and I'll be right there.
well, you're a CEO and you're a founder of the Contagious Smile. Do you want to talk about that or how you got to that?
We could do either one. I am the founder of a Contagious Smile and a Contagious Smile Academy. It started after I got away from my abuser, who was my ex. And my daughter is special needs. And I was sitting with her in the NICU. I stayed with her by her side for 6 months. I never left her side. I gave up my corporate career and stayed with her. And her craniofacial, the chief of the craniofacial division of the Children's Hospital, was saying, you really need to help other people because, my daughter was in a medically induced coma and there was other parents around, and I was like trying to help them and talk to them and, keep each other's spirits up and everything that we were doing. And he told me, you're doing an injustice by not helping these other families, because I had to learn all about everything, like what services are available, what therapies are necessary. You have to be trained in so many different medical avenues in order to take your child home. You have to room in before you're discharged. And my daughter had a tracheostomy. That's the tube in the neck that you breathe out of. She had a feeding tube. She had epilepsy. These were all things that prior to my daughter, I had never been familiar with. So
Mhm.
I was learning, and then I would tell them, I want you to teach me worst case scenarios. Say that the equipment doesn't work. I want you to teach me what to do if she has a plug in her trach and the suction machine doesn't work. I want you to help me make sure that she has that opportunity that she's been given to grow up and live an amazing, wonderful life. And so a Contagious Smile came about because I don't care what your smile looks like. Both of my jaws have been broken, and I have what I call my little Frankenstein scars on both sides of my face. I have 26 pieces of metal in my face. Both jaws have been replaced as well. I am 100% deaf in one ear and 88% deaf now in the other ear due to my eardrums being ruptured from the abuse. And I recall I rely on hearing aids for one ear, and one ear doesn't even have the eardrum anymore. So I realize that no matter where you are, a smile is contagious. If you smile at somebody, they're going to smile back. And, it takes 42 muscles to frown. So let's turn it upside down. Let's make somebody's day a little bit better. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it
Yeah.
makes somebody else so much happier. And especially when you're going through everything that these individuals were going through, it's a verbal hug. You don't have to physically touch somebody, but you can verbally hug them and help them get through what could be one of their worst days of their life. So regardless of the smile, because it was craniofacial, because my jaws were broken, no matter what the smile looks like, every smile tells a story. And that's where a Contagious Smile came from.
Well, I think that's really important to kind of take um, what you can like bring to the world in a simpler way. Cause a lot of times people are saying, well, I can't do this because I don't have the means.
Right.
And like a smile is something that you can just like, it doesn't cost any money. To
Absolutely. Anybody
and
can
so
do it.
yeah, and there's so many things like, like if poetry, like, well, you can go, to a poetry slam and you got to get the guts to go on the microphone. Um, but it's like you take that vulnerability and you're willing to bring it out. And
Right.
and I think that's the artistic, like, when I talk to creative people, even people like a lot of creative people, they suffered from trauma
Mhm.
and they use the creative, process to kind of exercise that and be able to kind of use it as therapy, as like art therapy, but that's like integral to their being. Like if you
Right.
ask an artist, they'll just do it whether they make money or not. They're gonna still produce that painting. They're gonna still try to act. They're still gonna try to write that song or whatever whatever they're into, that's what they're gonna do. But some folks they have that kind of ceiling or they've been put in a box where they're scared and there's that fear.
Yes.
Everybody's looking for safety. And so you're like in the situation you've been in with the domestic violence is like this very unsafe situation, very toxic. But sometimes what I was a sociology major. Sometimes you get stuck in that toxic situation and you feel that it's unsafe to be outside of it.
Yes, because you've been conditioned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes,
So you had over 120 surgeries
I have.
to overcome that. And that's a lot of physical like struggle, but there's like also the psychological and spiritual like damage that you have to overcome. And so it like everybody's got pillars of a human being. Like it's not just the physical, it's the spiritual, it's the mental, it's the soul, it's the heart. Can you kind of talk about like how you address like all those pillars?
Absolutely. I didn't want to. Well, let me go back a little bit. I never thought I would be that battered woman, and nobody ever does. Nobody ever says, I'm going to raise my hand and say I'm going to be that one in four of the
Mhm.
women. I'm going to be one in three when it comes to military and law enforcement because it's more prevalent in those divisions. And nobody ever thinks they're going to be that person, but you don't know until you're in their shoes, until you're in our shoes. You don't know. And so I became that very textbook battered wife where I couldn't look you in the eyes. I jumped at every sound. I was afraid of my own shadow. Everything had to be specific. And I kept thinking, this isn't going to happen to me. And then it was, what did I do wrong? And then
Mm.
it was, well, maybe if I just had dinner on the table 2 minutes earlier, he wouldn't have just broken my nose. Maybe it was, he didn't get his laundry completely folded and put away like it was supposed to. So he slammed my face into the counter. I should have done better. Maybe this is my fault because when you hear something every single day, it becomes your truth because that's what you hear. That's what you learn. Like when you hear somebody tell you, I love you every single day, you bond to those feelings, whether you want to or not. You begin to bond into that because that's what you hear. That's your daily normal, right?
Yeah.
So nobody goes in and says, I want to experience this because nobody does. But you begin to hear you're ugly. Nobody ever wants you. Nobody's ever going to want you. You should feel bad for me. And then after the incident, because they do go through cycles, sorry, I have allergies. When you go through cycles, they go through, why did you make me do that? Do you think I wanted to hurt you? And it's such a mind
Yeah,
twist.
it's a mind game. Like they're twisting, it's like a judo.
Absolutely.
Like they're
They,
flipping it on you. Like
yes.
so you've been victimized, but they're the victim.
Right. And they conform it to them where they make themselves out to be the victim. And it's, do you really think I like doing this to you? Why do you make me do this to you? And then you go, oh my God, I don't know. I don't mean to. And then you just shut down and you pull away from family and friends, but you're already getting isolated to begin with. They're
Yeah,
isolating you from everybody anyway. So, with all this going on, he even testified that before the abuse began, I wasn't pregnant. When I became pregnant, that's when it began, where he began hitting me every single day. And it was after he put me in the ICU for the final time, I was like, I can't let her have this mom. She doesn't deserve this mother. This one that jumps when the door opens, this one that jumps when you hear him. I knew when he was coming in the room. Like I could feel him. Like my body would just get tense knowing something was about to happen. So this went on and on. I ended up fighting and getting his rights terminated and won. I got permanent TPOs against him, and I fought against the military and won because, and let me be adamant when I say I am a very strong supporter in our military and in law enforcement. But whenever
Mm,
you go to an orchid, and you go in there, there's going to be some flowers that aren't living. There's going to be, if you go to an apple orchard, there's going to be apples that aren't, they're bad seeds. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean all of them are bad. So I am very big in advocating for military and for law enforcement. But I got the bad seeds, if you will. And so the military covered it up, which is very frequent in the
that
military now.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because, like, see, so I think sometimes people just, oh, well, you can't like denigrate the military, you can't denigrate the police, and so then that makes it your responsibility, like
Yes.
as the victims, like, well, I can't embarrass the police department, I can't embarrass this division of the military because
Right.
that's more important than me.
Right.
So
And they
does that
do have
how
that.
they make you feel that?
They did. And they have that big good old boy system where it's like, why did you do it? Why couldn't you just make him happy when he came home from work? Let me
Mm,
tell you something that most people on the outside looking in don't understand. If we did everything verbatim that we're supposed to do, if we had the laundry done, the bed made, the food on the table,
still gotta
the
happen.
house immaculate, if somebody cut him off on the way home, if he got reprimanded at work, if whatever happened, he got, ridiculed for a project he was working on, whatever the case may be, he's still going to come back to the house because it is not a home. It is a house. It's not home. They're going to come back to the house and they're still going to take it out on you because you are their, what they call playground. You are what they take their abuse out on. So no matter what you do, they're still going to come home and take it out on you. So it's not
Yeah.
your fault. And
Really, it's their deficiency. I mean, it's their not being able to handle the stresses in their life, and
right.
then
And
they're
it's men
putting
and
it on
women
you.
are both
Yeah,
victims. Absolutely. Absolutely they are. So I became this person that was like, I'm not going to let my daughter who's fighting to be here with me get that fetal position mom that isn't going to fight like she's fighting. I mean, she was coding every single day. She was having seizures every day. She had to have a tube in her neck to breathe out of. How can I not fight 110% when she's doing that for me? And all I ever wanted was to be a mom. That was my number one. I had the career, I had everything else I wanted. I just wanted to be a mom. And now I have it. I'm not going to quit. I'm not a quitter. But I had to find myself again after being destroyed. And, I look at it and I tell people all the time, if you go by a church, which everybody goes by every day when they drive, and you look up at them, you see these beautiful stained glass windows, right? That's made of broken glass. And people look at that and they don't see the beauty in it. If you take something and it's broken, you're not beyond repair. Look at a
yeah,
beautiful stained glass window. Those are pieces put back together. I tell all of the people that I work with, I tell my clients, I tell the people that I do therapy with that, you know what? You still have that flighting little flame within you, and that can start a wildfire. You have no idea how bright and strong you are. We are not victims, we are survivors. I
yeah.
was stabbed over a dozen times.
Wow.
Between all of my surgical scars and all the scars he left me, I was even told, "You look like Freddy Krueger and the Elephant Man had a baby." And that's so horrible to say to a person. And I still do. I still have body dysphoria because of it. And I've been working through it for decades now. But I see people and then you hear them and you hear what they're going through and you just realize, you know what? I'm still here and I'm here for a reason. And there's a
God.
reason why I survived when I was told I had less than 2% chance of doing so.
But this institutional gaslighting that you've been referring to is like it's very damaging, and you get some folks who are so into, I believe, just basically hiding things. Like we're kind of told, like some, I'm a child of the '70s and kind of grew up with parents and said, well, you kind of push that down, right? You push it
And
down,
suppress it
you hide the shame, you don't
100%.
talk about certain things. And then you grow up, in the '70s, and then, start opening up and you start saying, oh, you actually should talk about those things.
Right.
You actually should express yourself. You actually should say, Like, why should I believe that? Like you said, I'm not good enough. Like, why should I believe that? Like,
Right.
like that maybe that's not true. Maybe I can reprogram myself. Maybe I can get out of that box. And that's a hard thing because I think the world tells us they want people to think out of the box and then they put you in the cubicle or
Absolutely.
they put you in the suburb in the same house in the same thing. They put you in the boxes and they say, "Well, how come you're not creative?" It's like, "Well, you really don't want me to be creative."
Right. You're withholding me. Yes, 100%.
So, like, when you have these systems, like from the courts to the hospitals to like, paramedics or police or firefighters, they come to you and, they like the idea of like the calm abuser and the panicked victim.
Yes.
And I think there really needs to be more training because, like, it seems like people learn like STEM, people learn their certificate, but do they actually learn how to deal with people?
Right.
Do they learn how to deal with people who are traumatized? Do they learn how to deal with like this kind of situation and not have kind of predisposed filters? Because
Right.
if you have a predisposed filter from one of those systems, whether it's a social system, religious system, and you are predisposed to not believe the victim and to believe that calm abuser, right?
Mhm.
You've gotta get some kind of retraining of not just remapping yourself, but the world outside needs to also start to remap.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And when an officer arrives on the scene, normally it's two, and domestic violence is the most dangerous call for a law enforcement officer to respond to. And when you go in there and you see a woman that's been beaten or a man, and you see an individual that has marks on their person, and then you see someone who's calm, I mean, God forbid you get cut off or say you get in an accident, you're going to be shooken up. You're going to react, and that's how you're supposed to. We're human. We're supposed to react to that. But when you have that calm person on the side that's just like, she's clumsy, she fell into the floor, she fell into the chair, whatever. That's how she got a black eye. But you look at his knuckles and they're all bruised or red, depending
Yeah.
on your arrival time. And you know what? 99% of the time, they walk. The attacker, abuser, they walk. They don't serve the time for it. And the very few that actually do get incarcerated for it, they come out, they're not rehabilitated, they're going to do it again. And they turn around and say, "Well, I served my time." Well, let me just say to you, that's a bunch of baloney because for people who've gone through it, we have a life sentence. It's not a you serve a year and it's over. Our chapter, we learn how to relive everything. We learn how to refunction in every capacity because this has taken away so much of us. And we have to learn how to live in a different manner than we ever did prior to. So we get a life sentence. And yes, so many times the judges just, do a slap on the wrist. And if it's law enforcement, half the time the reports aren't even made. Half the time, like law enforcement, I was on the military installation when my nose was broken in front of his command and they turned a blind eye and didn't do a doggone thing. They did nothing. Now I know that is not every branch. I know that is not every platoon, but this was my particular situation. And my photographs coincided with my medical records that coincided with statements. Everything was verbatim and put into evidence. But they did nothing. They were like,
Well,
hmm,
it just seems like it's like what you said, there's like a good old boys network. I mean, I went to college, you got the frat boys, right? You have the good
yes,
old boys, you got the guys in the country club. So if they do something that's like immoral, they break a rule, they get the benefit of the doubt. Like if a kid like in Bed-Stuy goes and steals a Twinkie, he'll get the max.
right.
But if somebody that's in the Manhattan, hurts their daughter, hurts their wife, they get all kinds of leeway.
Yes.
So it's a kind of class. I was because again, it was like I'm a sociology major. There's a lot of stuff based on class. Like,
Yes. 100%.
regardless of the race or sex, it's like class level stuff going on. So if people are in a certain level class, if people say, "Oh, we don't have like what we have in India, we don't have a caste system," I would argue that we do. It's just not. It's not maybe as clear cut as what their system is. Like it's kind of hidden, but
Right.
it's actually in full view, and you've kind of experienced it. Anybody who's like had the situation you're talking about, has experienced it, the double standard
It
of
is. It is. And
like
when
what
you
the
go
law states and then what people actually do.
right. And when you go to court and you're sitting there and they put you up there and they're interrogating you. And we've already been through it. Why are you reattacking us? There's such a way to ask questions, but then he's sitting there like innocent and we're over there getting belittled. We're being degraded and just reassaulted all over again by, well, why didn't you leave? Why did
Yeah,
you
like,
stay?
why is it even a question? Like, you broke the law. You assaulted someone, right?
Right,
Like, if you hit, like, a judge, you punch a judge, you're gonna get the full force
right,
of the law, right? But if you punch your wife, somebody might say, "Well, why didn't you walk out? Why
right. And
didn't
it's
she leave?"
not as
Did
easy.
they ask the judge, "Why didn't he walk away from the punch?"
Right. And it's not as easy because you're being belittled on the stand. You're being degraded. And the thing is that they ask, and most people don't even go to court because they know it's not going to do any doggone good. It's
Yeah,
not. They're just going to walk and nothing happens. But then what really gets me, and now I advocate for special needs families. I advocate for survivors of abuse. I go to court. I actually do go to court and testify now on behalf. I just did a case, which I talk about quite frequently now. I did a case where the man was the victim of the assault, and it was the wife, and they had 6 kids, all under 6. And I
mm,
actually ended up becoming the advocate for the husband and the children. Went to court, we testified, and he got a restraining order for a year, and the judge wouldn't even allow him to see the children for a year, which was shocking that it happened. But the thing is a lot of times the judge, most times, and I will literally get real close to that line when I'm in court, when the judge says, he hit the spouse, and I'm in there testifying. More times I'm in there for the women because
yeah,
that's what it is. But
yeah,
I so many times, honestly, the judge would be like, Miss Curie, and I'm like, listen, you're telling these children it's okay to go to the dad. You're going to let the dad have visitation. At least do supervised visitation right now because obviously he has anger issues. Put him in anger management. Let him have proof to the court that he can be trusted alone with those kids. And
yeah.
the judges say, well, he hasn't hit the kids. He's only hit the spouse. It's a matter of time
It's a
before
matter
he
of
hits
time. You're
the
probably psychologically damaging the kids,
right.
which is
Or he
abuse,
starts
right?
hitting
Even
the
if they
pets.
weren't touched, they've been abused because they've seen their mother get hit. That's damage.
I am
Say,
so glad you said that because
but
most
that's
people
like
don't recognize that.
if the law doesn't recognize psychology, it doesn't recognize sociology. If they only
Right,
recognize you physically had to hit somebody,
right.
right?
I'm so
But the
glad you said that.
psychological damage is just as real as anything, right? So
100%.
but the problem is like really, law sometimes it's like 17th century, 18th century, and 19th. It's like it's not caught up with our understanding, right? Like now we have understandings that they didn't understand when they wrote the law,
Right.
right? And law is kind of like, oh, it's like 1 and 0. It's like logic in a computer. There's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of stuff that actually requires more than a yes no question, right? And
Yes.
answer. And the problem is it's like it's not designed for that. And so we've got to get people to start being more realistic and really start, it's a kind of a bottom up approach.
Right.
Like
They need to listen.
we
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that because it's true. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, Your Honor, please just hear me out. If that kid hasn't been physically attached by his father or mother at this point, it's a matter of time, but I'm here to promise you take the child in chambers. Let me go with you. I am an advocate for that child. I represent the children. It's kind of like a guardian ad litem. I represent that child. I'm doing what's best in the best interest of the child. And I'm here to tell you that those children are like, why did you hit my mom? Why did
yeah,
you
the
hit my
damage
dad?
already.
And they see it. They don't want to be left alone with that person. They don't want to be anywhere near that person right now. So even if you want to be like, well, they haven't hit the kid yet, start out with supervised visitation. Make him show accountability that he can be trusted around or she can be trusted around these young kids. Because I say this is like my go-to statement. Our children should not have to spend their adulthood recovering from their childhood.
Yeah,
And
well, that's the
so
problem
many
with
of
in
us
our
are.
society. Our society has a lot of damage that's, like, inherited from these things being like, "Oh, these are shameful things, we hide these things,"
Right.
right? They
To
if you
suppress
go
it.
back into a family, like grandpa, great-grandpa, they was like there's this family secret, right?
Right.
There was this pillar in the community. They had 10 kids, all the kids were abused.
Right.
But they're a pillar and nobody talks about it until somebody writes a book, somebody does something, finally comes out. It's like what you saw is not what it is. Everybody's wearing a mask, nobody's telling the truth,
Right.
and it's all about appearances. It's all about trying to show up, and like they don't want to know the real story, or trying
Right.
to
And
hide the
behind
real
closed
story.
doors, it's a whole different
Yeah,
game.
it's a real bad problem because the damage across our if it affects GDP. If these people don't understand, like all if you keep on damaging the children, they become workers, they become
Mhm.
parents, they damage their kids, and their kids damage their kids, and it just keeps on cascading.
That's why we
And
have to
then
break the cycle.
yeah, and then we have all these dysfunctional families, dysfunctional individuals. The microcosm affects the macrocosm. It bleeds into both. People become addicted. They get into bad patterns. They get into incarceration. They get into not being able to be productive, can't stay in a job, have all kinds of issues. Like if you don't solve the problem, if you say, oh, well, parents have a right to do whatever they want, right? The
Right.
father can do whatever he wants. The mom can do whatever they want. See, that's the mindset. And it's got to start saying, well, you know what? That was what you thought. But like if they're breaking laws and they're hurting people, we need to readdress like society has like a responsibility to
Mhm.
create a code of conduct,
Right.
right? And if you're a citizen and you're part of that culture, the people should understand what the code of conduct is.
I was doing a speaking engagement one time, and the reason I bring this up is I can't tell you how many times I have been told like this is like one of those eye-opening things. And I had an after Q&A thing, and one of the ladies was sitting by a woman who at the time I was like, this must be her daughter. And her daughter was very closed up and scared, and you could see it in her face. And I asked where they were from and everything. And the lady goes, "Oh, I'm here for her. She was beaten and da da da. And she stayed, so she deserved it." And I was like, "Let me ask you a question." And I was like, "There's a bunch of women in the rows." And so I was like, one and four, one and four. And I was like, "So that would be you, your daughter, your sister, your mom, or your grandmother, or anything like that." And I was like, "Have you ever faced any type of abuse?" And she said, "No." And I was like, "Good for you. God bless you." And I was like, "Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had cancer?" And she's like, "No." And I said, "Well, let me ask you this." And I said, "I say this with the utmost respect to you." And I said, "If you found out tomorrow that you had a brain tumor and it was cancer and it wasn't malignant, but I mean, what would you do? Would you want to go to the top neurology doctor, the best neurologist you could find? Or would you want to go to a podiatrist?" And she's like, "Why would I want to go to a foot doctor?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of like your beautiful daughter sitting there. I am so proud of you." And I said this to her for even coming in here today because it's such a huge step in your healing and recovery. It really is because we're in recovery from healing from abuse. We're in recovery. You don't have to be addicted to drugs or alcohol. We're still in recovery. We're recovering from being abused. And I said, "I'm so proud of you for taking this step, for being here today, just showing up. It's huge." And I said, "And to your mom," and I said, "You would not go to a podiatrist and say, 'Get out my tumor,' because they don't know what they're doing. So unless you have gone to that training and you are a neurologist, don't tell her how to take out a brain tumor. She has no idea because you haven't been in that position." And she just looked at me. And at the end, she apologized to her daughter and said, "She's right. I don't know." And I said, "If you have nothing good to say, just sit there and let her feel like she's not alone for once. Don't talk. If you don't have anything nice to say and you're going to put blame on her, she's getting that enough. Just sit with her. Maybe offer her refuge. Maybe offer her a place to go. Maybe offer to help her. And if she's at that point where she wants to talk, just listen. Don't intervene. Just listen. Let her talk because our voices are being silenced. And our silence is protecting the wrong person. So just
Yeah.
hear her out."
I think society sometimes is like if you're a marginalized person or you're part of, the people who are like, neurodivergent or
Mhm.
marginalized or people who have been abused, sometimes society's like they don't want to hear it. Like they
Right,
sometimes the majority, they like, well, that's depressing, right?
because it
That's
makes
Nick.
them uncomfortable.
Make them it's like I'm an African American. Like if I bring up like the big R, people don't want to hear about it. They don't
Right.
want to hear about it. They don't want me to hear it. They wanted to say, well, everything's great. Right. Okay. But what if everything's not great? Right. So the problem is like as soon as it's like they want to talk about sports, they want to talk about the weather, but if you say, hey, you know what? Somebody burned a cross on this family's uh the black family, only black family in the neighborhood, but you don't want to talk about it because it makes you feel uncomfortable. But that family had to deal with it. Right. So you don't want to hear it because you want to say it's no problem. That's the problem, because
Yeah, you
like,
just wanna go like this and brush it off.
yeah, they don't wanna hear about it. Like, so when stuff happens, they don't wanna hear about because they wanna have the illusion that everything's like, Leave It to Beaver, and it's
Yes.
not.
It's not. It's
You
not.
know? And that it makes people uncomfortable. So I have people around me in my life where it's kind of law of attraction, like, the people who can handle how I'm gonna talk, how I'm gonna act, they can be around me. The
Mhm.
other people is like they kind of like I'm not going to force it. It's like you can't handle it. And I'm not just going to talk about the weather,
Right.
so you're probably not going to like it.
Yeah, and that's their loss, not yours.
Yeah, and I think that's like you got to find your legs. It's like you find your strength. You say I'm gonna be who I am. I'm not gonna let them dictate how I should be in this world, how I show up. And I think a lot of times people want to dictate how other people should show up because it makes them feel comfortable.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm not a subscriber to that. Because I think some people need to hear the hard truth, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's the big issue because and if people are not like, you have to reclaim the narrative because people wanna tell your story for you. Like, you should be allowed to tell your story,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So, because you gotta have like, the truth has the microphone, right? Like, that's your concept, right?
That is very true.
So, like, silence is like, is I guess it's great for the narcissist if you stay quiet.
Yes, that's their greatest gift you give them because
Yeah.
they don't want their truth heard. And that's why they make you out to be such a bad person, such a horrible person. They try to make everybody not like you and think that you're a liar and so they discredit you to value them.
Mhm. And moving on, like, like if you I'm a cancer survivor, right?
Good for
And
you.
I'm 58. When I was 27, I had a level like a level 3
Stage 3.
stage 3 sarcoma. And went through max radiation, bunch of surgeries, chemo, and all that. And I survived it. But
God
it's like
bless.
it's always there. Like you can try to act well, it never happened, but it's like I have to consider it because like I can't go out out in the sunlight because I had the max radiation. So I have to be mindful of like where I am. It's like so if something happens, you still have to be mindful of what the effect it has on you. And up to this day, there's certain things that cancer did is I have to be more mindful of my diet. I have to be more mindful how much sun I get. So like when you have something that happens to you, you can't just push it down. You have to be aware of it. You have to have your situational awareness of how it affects how you are now.
Yes. Yes.
Is it hard for like in your experience for folks to try to deal with that? Is there a tendency to try to like push it down?
Yes, they do. They suppress it. They don't want to face it. They don't want to heal from it. They're afraid to. They think it's their fault. Body dysphoria is very prevalent. They don't want to look at themselves. They see themselves in a mirror in a contorted way. They see themselves in a mirror in a way that their attacker, their abuser, I don't like the word partner because that's not a partnership. It's
Mhm.
not a relationship. It's not a significant other, because that means y'all are equal, and it's not. So I say attacker or abuser. They belittle you into such a formation where you believe what you're heard or what you hear every day. So you see that broken person in the mirror. You see that shallow how complex where you know, might be 120 pounds, but he has made you out to be 350 pounds. And you see this big overweight person. And so everything is controlled: what you wear, how you wear your hair, how you wear your makeup, who you talk to, where you go. And so what you eat, everything is controlled. So you begin to feel like you're in a robotic, just, you know, state where you just continue to go based upon what you're shown and told. And that becomes really the only person that you're allowed to interact with. So all that you're hearing from that person is what you are being engaged with on a daily basis. And that's what you come to light with on a daily basis is nothing is going to look good on me. Why do I care? You know, that, and then you went from a very predominant person, you know, very well put together person to a person that, you know, lets themselves go in so many aspects, because you hear, you know, you're disgusting and you're nasty and you're ugly and nobody wants you and they feel bad for me because I'm with you. Look at you. You're gross. You're all, ooh, it's disgusting. You know, you should feel bad for me being seen in public with you. And you hear all that, and that doesn't make you want to get dressed up and make yourself look good, because you can't anyway, because you're controlled on everything that you wear. If I, like, for instance, in the wintertime, I have very chapped lips. So I got chapstick. You're a whore, because I tried to put chapstick on.
No.
And when you hear these things,
Mm.
you're like, I'm only trying to put chapstick on. I'm not putting, you know, that lady of the night red, or, you know, whatever lipstick color shade or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to not have my lips, you know, split open, other than by him because he's doing it, but just, you know, chapstick. And it's, you're a whore. If you try to wear anything that, like, any cleavage, like a t-shirt that, you know, has that V-neck, you're a slut because you're showing cleavage, and you're not doing that on purpose. It might be 100 degrees outside. It doesn't matter. Anything you do is going to be contradicted by that individual who is so insecure and so self-deficient on themselves that they're just going to project it onto you. They're going to make you feel the way that they feel about themselves.
Yeah, they I mean, they're projecting their kinda hatred for women, their
Right.
probably hatred for
Absolutely.
themselves.
Absolutely.
Like, they've been, like, you know, how they grew up must have been very dysfunctional. Their
It's
their
very
their
dysfunctional.
yeah, their opinion of women was probably molded by whatever their male opinion, you know, whoever, with their parent or grandparent or maybe their mom. If that gets you know, driven into you from the time you're 4 years old,
Well, it's not just
like you
that.
yeah.
It's the fact that you need to think about it. Let's look at the case scenario for a daughter and a son. So let's just do, because it's more predominant that a man is the abuser, like I said, but it's both ways. That a little boy sees daddy hurting mommy. Well, that
Mhm.
little boy is learning from that productive age that you just said, 4 on, learning that that's how a man is supposed to be, that is how a man is supposed to treat his mom. So it's okay for him to treat his sister. It's okay for him to go to school and be a bully. He's going to grow up seeing that that's how you degrade and talk down to a woman. He's going to see that that is how you act as a human being, that that is how you are in a relationship, and not just with a significant other, but to family. And that is what you as a man are teaching your son.
Yeah.
And if you have a daughter, you're teaching your daughter that that's the kind of man that she
Yeah,
should
they
get,
should
because
yeah,
that's her
that
normal.
yeah,
It's your
because that's who they
responsibility.
should be
Right.
drawn to, is
It's
somebody
your
who has that vibe.
responsibility as a dad to show that protective dad, that you make sure nobody puts their hands on you in an unwarranted manner. Nobody should ever touch you in an unwarranted way. And instead, you're showing that it's okay for a man to talk to you that way. It's okay for you to be littled and degraded and disgusted and talked down to in such a negative format. And you're seeing it in your own mother. And not only are you getting it double sided, because you're seeing that from a man's perspective of, that's the kind when you're a little girl, that's what you want, is a man like your daddy, because that's what you know and that's what you see every day. But you're seeing how to act because you're also watching your mom. You're
Yeah,
seeing
right.
how your mom reacts, right? And I wrote a book, Dear Silence,
Mm.
and I opened it up for my listeners and said, I want you to tell me a story of survival and strength. And within like 2 weeks, I had like 500 submissions. And I'm pretty much going to have to do a volume two of it. And I had this one son who wrote to me, and it haunted me, honestly, because he wrote to me, I hated my mother. I hated her. And the book was written, and I literally took each one of their individual submissions to me and put it in. And it was everybody from law enforcement to military to people who watched it happen to the attacker themselves, to the victims, to the moms, to the girls, to the daughters, to the son, to the loved ones watching from the outside. And this one particular young man wrote in, talk about he hated his mother. He hated her because he didn't understand why he didn't leave. Why didn't she leave? Why did she stay with their dad when all he ever watched was her getting beaten? And he went to bed every night hating his mom. And after he turned 18, he left the minute he could. And what really broke my heart when I read this, and I actually reached out and talked to him, and I told him, I said, this literally just felt like an elephant sitting on my chest. And he was like, Victoria, I hated my mom, and I can't turn back time because I didn't understand why we stayed. But the reason I learned now why we stayed was because she did not ever tell us that she tried to leave him. And when she tried to leave, she was told that he would get us kids without her there. And he never hit us because she always let him hit her. And
Mhm.
I learned now that had she divorced him, he would have gotten us every other weekend, and she couldn't have kept us safe. And I live with that now. And that was so hard to see from the eyes of a child because he wrote
Yeah.
it in a very elementary way. He wrote it like he was still stuck in that age where he was watching it from inside. And he was like, I don't want a relationship with anyone. Because of everything I lived in and lived with and saw. And I hated my mom. And now I love her because she protected me from that. And there's all sorts of stories in there of survival. I did write a book called Shielded, which is actually about the disruption and coercion of the government, the military, the courts, the law enforcement side, where they do cover it up. The courts cover it up. If you're, wearing the uniform, it's almost a, get out of jail free. But
Yeah.
I'm really happy. I just finished, and this was a big project for me. I've done over 50 books, including my memoir, Who Kicked First, which tells the actual story of what I went through. But I just finished, and they're adorable. My service dog is Stucco, and I just finished an 11-book series for kids 4 to 8, and it's called the Stucco Squad series, and it is written at the cognitive level of their age. And it talks, and every one of them has a different scenario in the book. Like one of them talks about why home is so loud. Why is it that I hear them yelling while I'm in my room? Did I cause this? Is it my fault? Did I do so? Am I bad? Am I a bad kid because daddy's yelling at mommy? Am I bad? And it goes through the scenarios of how to make these children realize that it is not their fault. They did
Mhm.
not do anything wrong. And it goes through all different kinds of, different scenarios that it goes through. And I built the academy, a Contagious Smile Academy, where these courses are valued at well over $100 a piece. But I don't believe, and I know that you'll agree with me on this, that you should not be denied access to health care and therapy and resources based on your financial status. Because
Yeah.
when you leave a situation, you don't have anything. And I'm not going to say to somebody, oh, you don't have $100 to pay for my course, you're not taking it. I've
Mhm.
given out almost 600. It's at like 584 or right around that number right now, scholarships in the last couple of months. And I'm funding all of this out of my own pocket. I don't take a paycheck, and it is hard. Believe me, I definitely, scrounge to survive, but I want to make sure that people have the resources that they need. And most classes in there are like $5 to help cover the cost of the platforms and, everything you have to pay to keep it up and going and live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these courses are in there, and they're for the abusers. They are for the survivors. They are for the special needs. They are for the kids who are involved in it. There's their own Stucco Squad series where you can go in there and do these courses and learn how to do everything step by step. And they're like $5 a piece. And if you can't afford it, all you have to do is reach out to me and I'll give you a scholarship, no questions asked, so that you are not alone and that you get to go through this and have the resources and strength and healing that you deserve.
I think it's important to be able to give people, the care they need, and we've kind of got a structured society where it's like, would do you really like think about this idea? It's like, would you really need to pay for the fire department
Right.
to come to put out a fire, right? So we have some people in society would say, yeah, you should actually have to pay for that, right? So this is the kind of mindset. What does it take to be a citizen? Like to be a to have like be part of a society that's functioning, is you do have to have empathy.
Yes.
We're being told to people like I saw some tech bro say that he thought it was a superpower to have no introspection and to have no empathy. And
Wow.
and and this is the problem I have when you get into STEM, right? You get into this pure logic and you start saying, like, I empathize with a machine more than a human being. That I say, I'd rather like have all the power from this power plant going to feed my data center than to actually giving heat to the homeless, because I think these homeless people aren't productive, right? So I rather give all that power so that people can become entrepreneurs and make billions of dollars rather than taking care of somebody in a shelter.
But what
Right.
about those people in the shelter that served our country and kept us free? Or
Yeah, that's
those
what I'm
people
saying.
that are in the shelter that left because their life depended on it?
Yeah, it's a kind of Calvinistic like classes, they get into this point of view that if I make billions of dollars, I'm closer to being a better person. And I don't think that's true,
I
right?
don't.
So there's a problem where that the infrastructure of that, is kind of like the law enforcement and the military kind of potentially supports that structure. And if the structure is becoming very top down and not bottom up and not feeling that empathy is woke, like
Right.
you can't empathize with a woman who is battered because it's her fault,
Right.
right? So that's the mindset. Just like you can't empathize with a Native American that's on the reservation because, oh, well, they should have made money. Why are they on the reservation? They should have gone and got a franchise and opened up a job. It's like I shouldn't care about them, right? And so I think like we've got to start getting people to say, well, like, why can't you feel for your fellow person? Like just because it didn't happen to me, do you only feel when you have to do a GoFundMe? Like,
Yes.
so it's like suddenly, like you suddenly have an illness. So now you gotta do the GoFundMe. So you want the whole neighborhood, the whole community, they should feel for you, but you never gave any money to that person's GoFundMe last week or last year.
Unless
You
it's
only
advantageous for them, they're not gonna do
yeah,
it.
you only did it when it's you.
Right.
So I just I kind of like that kind of spins around and it's kind of karmic. So
It
I think people need to understand, and really I'm glad you're here because people have to understand is like this narcissism is like you have this idea of the concept of the narcissistic war zone, and maybe you can kind of talk to people about like what that means to you.
Narcissism is really people just say, "Oh, they must have had a bad childhood." That's not necessarily true. It really isn't. They don't have to have had a bad childhood. You also can break the cycle. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, that's because they have a mental illness." Well, what also really gets me is let's say you're found criminally insane and you've beaten somebody. And well, we're going to put them on a 1013, we're going to put them in a psych hold, and we're going to put them through this. They were in their right mind enough to hit somebody. They were in their right mind enough to pull a trigger or stab somebody. So does that mean that they should get out of jail free pass? Absolutely not. It is the mask concept. When you're behind closed doors, that narcissist, that mask is hung up by the keys and the coat and everywhere else. But when you open that door, that mask is right by that door because you never know who's on the other side of it. And a narcissist cares more about the people on the outside than the inside. They care about what people think of them. They care about the perception of who they are. The reality is not the real thing. And then they end up, putting an identity on their children. Like you have the black sheep or the scapegoat. You have the golden child. They pit the siblings against one another so
Mhm.
that they can't co-inspire together to see what it is that's going on. And the narcissist really just is so calculated and so manipulative that it only cares about them. But inside, they are so miserable and unhappy. And that's where that saying, misery loves company, comes from. Because
Yeah.
if you try and cross a narcissist, you better be ready. Because, I call him my sperm donor because to me, giving him the term of father or dad, he doesn't
Mm.
deserve it. So I'm not going to give him that. And so it's the sperm donor. And that's basically what he gave me. And I thank him because he taught me how not to be as a parent, how not to be as a human being, how not to be as an individual, because I care. If you called me in the middle of the night, I'm going to be right there and help you any way that I can. He will try to charge you. And he lives in a 10,000 square foot house, and it's a house, not a home. And it's like a museum. You go in there and it feels like your soul's being sucked out of you. You
Mhm.
can't touch the floor with
Yeah,
shoes
touch
unless
anything.
they have rubber soles. You
Yeah.
can't touch the walls. I mean, if you're going to fall, he'd rather you fall than put a handprint on his wall, right?
Mhm.
This is
Very
how it is.
materialistic, yeah.
They're
Like,
so
they're so
materialistic.
yeah, it's super materialistic, like, not, any kinda sense of, compassion, right?
Right.
So, like you said, they'd rather see you hit the floor than touch
Absolutely.
the wall.
Right, and I'm no contact with mine because I don't like toxicity. I don't
Yeah,
want it.
it's toxic,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna have it anymore. And the thing is when I had seen them, the very last time I saw them, it was, "Oh, look at my brand new luxury SUV," or "Look at my brand new luxury, sedan." And I'm like, "Doesn't keep you warm at night, I don't care."
Yeah,
And I'm like,
really, that's
I'd rather have
materialism.
all the love and the unconditional love in the world than all the money because that's not gonna keep you happy. That roof over your head is not gonna keep you warm at night. It's not gonna be there for you if you need it. It's not gonna do anything. It's a physical dwelling that is just there. It's there,
Or
right? It's what
hoarding
you live life.
hoarding thing, hoarding money, hoarding wealth, hoarding, like, real estate, and then not feeling good, right? Like,
Right,
being in a 10,000 square foot home all by yourself, then hating everybody outside you. Like, everybody outside is the enemy.
yes,
Everybody's the other. They're all trying to take your stuff. And it's like, well, the person who actually can go out into the crowd can go out and smile. They can go and actually collaborate with their neighbors, work on something together, maybe help watch a neighbor's child, go and ask if they need something without looking for something.
right.
That person will smile, like you're saying, they'll have, like, that contagious smile. That
I
person
was gonna say it.
doesn't need money to be happy.
Right,
Just being around their friends makes them happy. Being around their family makes them happy. Knowing that they looked out for the elderly neighbor and they like, "Oh, has anybody seen her? Maybe somebody should knock on the door and see if
right.
they're okay," rather than like, "Oh, well, maybe we should evict them from the neighborhood because they're gonna lower the value."
Yes. You want quality, not quantity. It doesn't matter how many. I would rather because when, this is the basic bottom line. They come around only when they need you, but if you need them, they don't care. They're not going to be around because it doesn't help them. It's not for them. If you're not going to make them better about themselves, they have no use for you. And so whenever they don't do something right, I used to get blamed for things that I wasn't even living in the same physical state that they were in. And I would get blamed for stuff and I wasn't even there. Like I
Yeah,
was blamed if something went missing, and I wasn't even in the physical state. It doesn't matter. It's not being able to account and hold yourself accountable and take accountability for your actions. And that is a huge trait with a narcissist is they are never going to say, I messed up. I screwed up. I did wrong. They can not and will not apologize. They have no ability to do so because they don't. And that's what's so scary. They don't think they do anything wrong.
yeah, it's very dangerous. Cause we got a world today. We got like all over the world. We have a lot of narcissistic leaders that are
Yes.
causing things to happen, and they're the ones that made the decision,
Right.
but it's
They just,
always some other group that caused it, right? So it's
right.
like, oh, like they are causing the problem, so I'll go and blow up their country. But they didn't even do anything, right? So there's these skirmishes all over the world happening, and you're like, well, why did that happen? Well, bottom line is this person actually wanted to take these resources,
Right.
and then they came up with a reason, a straw man. Oh, like, well, they're a problem. So if I say they're a problem, then I can just take their stuff. So I mean, that's kind of what's always gone on, and
Yes.
we got people who take that from a macrocosm level, and we have people who do it on a microcosm level. It is take all your energy vampire. They take all your soul and give you nothing and then tell you like they're feeling bad and it's your fault.
You're
So
right.
it's like that's like we don't need that.
Yeah,
Nobody needs that. So like
yeah,
if you're around an energy vampire, like you need to like separate.
absolutely.
But I want to thank you for being here. We do have your QR code, which
Oh, yeah.
goes to your Contagious Smile. So if people go to their website, what do they find there?
Well, there's a bunch of different websites. There's the Contagious Smile website, and it shows you how to get onto the academy. It also has resources. We have a moving company in every, not we own, but we have found a moving company in every state that will move you for free if this is a situation you're in. There's
Mhm.
ways to get a hold of me personally, and I can help you every step of the way. Then there's also links to the books that you can help yourself with in the healing journey. I offer free webinar Zooms twice a week for support groups. All of that is in there. You can also go to victoriacuore.com. All the books are in there. The resources are in there as well. And the academy, like I said, you can join it for free. There are plenty of free classes in there. Most of them are. Um, just, whatever I can do to help, I'm here to do it.
I want to let people know that that hyperlink that's below in your Instagram links, those will be clickable within the podcast platform that we're on. The QR code, you can just scan that with your phone and bring you right to that website for a contagious smile. And you did mention your main website, which we don't have on the screen, but you can refer to that. I want to thank you for being on the show today on a
Thank
Saturday
you.
afternoon. It's been very informative. I think will help a lot of people who maybe haven't heard this before. So I
Thank you.
want to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.